Today we are going to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo means the 5th of May, or May 5th, which is a lot like our 4th of July, where we celebrate our independence. So Mexico gained their independence on Cinco de Mayo. Boys and girls, I want to show you these blankets because my true Mexican blanket is this one right here. We are going to make a blanket where we are going to inspect the lines that we see and shapes, lots of diamonds, arrow lines, crisscross or hatch lines, of course our horizontal lines. And boys and girls, when we talk about pattern on things like blankets and materials and fabrics and clothing, that is called textile. How many of you have a Mexican blanket at your house? We put fun things on the end like fringe, pom-poms, okay, so something to think about. So I'm gonna go inside and we'll begin together our Mexican blanket. This is the Mexican blanket that I made, and I'm gonna guide you through one. Before we get started, I wanna remind you of two things. The first thing is the due dates that I put out. I put those for families who kind of need the due dates to help keep them organized. Ignore any notifications that you get that say it's missing or it's almost due or anything like that. If you didn't get to it yet, don't let those notifications panic you. I ignore them on my end. Whenever you can hand it in is when you can hand it in. The other thing is when I return artwork. If you get a notification that says I returned artwork, that's just kind of a virtual way of saying I looked at your artwork, I graded it and gave it 100 points. I also write something back to you about your artwork, which I love seeing. All of that will be included when I return your artwork. It does not mean that you have to hand anything back to me. It's my way of handing it back to you. It helps me to stay organized, and it's a sure way to make it so that I don't miss anybody's artwork or overlook anyone's name that was turned in. So if I return it to you, it goes into a virtual pile of returned work. Any new artwork that comes in will be in a separate category of work that I didn't see yet. Are you guys ready to start your Mexican blanket? All right, so before you begin, you're going to want to come up with a plan. I'm just going to draw some pretty wide lines, and I'll show you what it's going to look like on my actual piece. And I'm going to save the bottom and the top piece right here for fringe. That once I mapped this out, I filled it with designs, and I looked on ideas that I got from Google. And then I also got my blankets back out. So if you have anything at home that you want to copy off of, dish towels, girls, your leggings or prints on clothing or lunch boxes, book bags, anything that is a textile, as we talked about, that has pattern like that. So make your plan, and when you're finished, you'll get your surface that you want to work on. Just to keep committed to what I always say about not wanting to assume people have paper at home, I'm still going to continue to work on my cardboard box pieces. So I'm going to begin with crayons. I'm going to start with black, and I'm going to do what I just started here. I can continue to use black, or I can switch my colors around. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to do that traditional diamond design that we see on almost every Mexican blanket. So I'm starting with either an open circle, or you can color it in, and then two bent lines to create the diamond around it. So a bent line there, and a bent line there. And then you're going to copy that pattern. Starting in the middle helps you to keep your pattern centered. I'm going to reverse these bent lines and do them in the backwards direction so that we can achieve, whoops, I broke, where the two lines go in the reverse direction and create that appearance of the X. Very traditional of the Mexican blankets. And I ran out of room a little bit on that side, and that's okay. You'll see how I make lines that I didn't mean to originally make, and I don't start over or worry about it. I just leave it alone because most people won't notice or care. So I'm gonna refer to my little map here of what I'm doing. And if I, for some reason, ended up with more on this one than I allow on this one, I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm working from the center and going outward to make sure that I save this and this for the fringe that is also traditional of Mexican blankets. I think I'm gonna try this crosshatch design here. I'm gonna use green. So I'm doing diagonal lines in one direction all the way across. And then I'm gonna do diagonal lines going in the other direction. I'm gonna find this empty space that's created. I'm going to take that up with some triangles. So a triangle pointing down and a triangle pointing up. Before you begin painting, tell Google to turn on mariachi music so you can really feel like you're in Mexico. I like doing this in my classroom when we do art from different cultures and things like that. I want to show you what we're going to be doing. It's called a wax resist. Wax is what is made from a crayon, and wax resists water. It means it repels it. It doesn't like it. So there are 3 different water-based paints, so to speak, that you can put over top of the crayon. Watercolor, I recommend the most, would be the easiest. I'm using these tempera cakes that will work as well. Maybe not as good as watercolor, but mine are getting low. I want to try these. Also, washable markers will work as well. So I'm going to show you one of each to show you what will happen when you do your wax resist. You're going to simply get a cup of water, a paintbrush, and a paper towel. You're going to wet your brush. You're going to choose a nice bright color to go over your first color. Well, you guys don't have to do this. I'm just showing you what wax resist is and what it does. This is just a sampling. I'm going to paint it over top of my red, and you can see that the red crayon pops through the yellow paint. Do you see how that happens? You're going to see it like scatter right off of the red paint, and it still shows up as vibrantly as the yellow paint. So trying it on top of the blue, I'm rinsing the yellow off of my brush. I'm waking up a new color. And I'm painting over. I have to make sure this is pretty watery. Like I said, the watercolor paints will work the best. Okay, my blue is still popping through, and I picked a color to make sure that the blue will still show with my magenta purple there. Finally, the marker technique. Remember, washable. I have to color over top of my crayon, which isn't going to feel natural as the watercolors. And then I'm going to add water to it. Make sure my brush is cleaned off. and it should turn, see that? It kind of turns the marker into paint. So you will be able to achieve the same effect as the watercolor paints. See that? We're gonna apply this technique to our Mexican blanket. I'm also gonna paint this white and this white for the fringe. And then when that's dry, I'll be cutting, again, similar to what we did with our last project, to make fringe. You don't have to do your fringe first, or you can even do a white crayon if you're working with, if you don't have white paint. I know white doesn't come in the watercolor trays a lot. Okay, now that I have my whites done, I am ready to start painting. Okay, it's all done. The fringe is done. This whole part is done. You can kind of use your finger to rough up the fringe on the end, so they kind of, like, even if they bend a little bit, just so that they stand out and you can see it. See the difference between that side and that side? And then you can be done here, or if you want to take that extra step, and add some pom-poms. I know the only reason I'm bringing these up is because I saw a couple of you using these on art projects from the past, like your art storage box and things like that. So these would be fun to glue down right here. They would look cute. And there's another way to add little pom-poms on if you want, but look how cool that would look on there. It would just add extra Mexican flair to it. Another way, you do pretend pom-poms and use a hole puncher and any kind of colored paper that you might have, or colored from a magazine like recycled paper or newspaper. This is optional. You do not have to bother cutting out circles or anything like that. But you could set these on the end to make it look like they're little pom-poms. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue those down. I noticed some people in the last project had some hole punchers, so I'm bringing these things up because I'm noticing some of you have these things at home. So boys and girls, I hope you had a lot of fun making this in honor of our Cinco de Mayo celebrations this week. And you learned a little bit about what a textile is, traditions of Mexican art, and of course, practicing over our different kinds of lines again, and geometric lines and geometric shapes. All right, I can't wait to see your pictures. Have fun.